Well, thanks very much for coming out, folks. And has anybody heard me speak before? One or two? Okay, thank you for coming again. Look, it's a real honour to be here amongst you. We're practically neighbours now. We're living in Iowa at the moment as we complete the movie, which will be out early next year. But Reagan always said you should start with an amusing incident. Well, I was in Los Angeles. Well, can you all hear me okay for a start? Okay, sorry. Can you understand the southern accent? Okay. I was in Los Angeles recently, and I bought some food from a street vendor, and he said to me, "Oh, you have an accent. Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from New Zealand." He said, "Well, where's that?" And I said, "Well, look, it's down by Australia." He said, "Where Arnold Schwarzenegger comes from." So that's Common Core geography for you. So everybody always says to me, you know, I've been to all over this country now for 4 years, spoken to maybe 400 groups. And everybody always says to me, why do I care about New Zealand? Why do I care about America? And I say there are two reasons. The first is gratitude. My country was saved from invasion in World War II by the Japanese Imperial Army, by the massive sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway. And that's a very strong memory in my country, folks. I was in Florida one time when I spoke to a meeting, and I mentioned that, and a man came up to me afterwards, pretty tough looking guy, like a truck driver type of guy, and he was bawling his eyes out. And he said to me, "My uncle died in Guadalcanal, and nobody's ever said thank you until now." And I was very proud to be the one to do it, I'll tell you. Now, the other reason is related, but it's a little more selfish. Ronald Reagan had it right. This is the last best hope for mankind. If freedom should fail in the United States, if you lose your constitution, your liberty, your economic dynamism, and your military superiority, all of which are in grave danger, the bad guys of this planet, I'm talking Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, North Korea, and their Islamic allies, and they are allies, folks. Forget what Putin is supposedly doing to ISIS. He set up ISIS, people. They will carve up this planet amongst themselves. And you see this unfolding right now. And if you're an ally of the United States, if you're Israel or Germany or Britain or Canada or South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, you're freaking out right now because you see that the leadership of this country loves the bad guys a lot more than they love the good guys.
Right.
That's causing big problems, people. You know, your allies are looking at America and they're worried because they see the first thing your president did when he assumed office was to cancel a missile shield that was supposed to protect the Czech Republic and Poland from the Russians. Then they saw him abandon Georgia to the Russians. Then when there was a genuine rebellion in Iran against the mullahs, this whole Iran thing could have been put aside. Obama stood back, let thousands be arrested, tortured and put to death. Then when there was when the Muslim Brotherhood and the Communist Party of Egypt took out your ally Mubarak, Obama cheered them on. And now they're looking at the Ukraine, folks. People don't think about the Ukraine much at the moment, but that's a life or death struggle, people. And you have to remember what Napoleon said about the Ukraine. Whoever controls the Ukraine controls Europe. Whoever controls Europe controls the world. The Ukraine has a treaty signed in your Senate under Bill Clinton guaranteeing that country American protection from Russian military aggression. They gave up their nuclear arsenal in exchange for an American promise, folks. And now that they need it, where is it? So far, Obama has sent them a few $100 million of non-lethal aid and John Kerry. Well, who is John Kerry, folks? He's basically Jane Fonda with less testosterone. People, this is not about a depression. You're Americans, you'll fight out of a depression. This is not even about losing some of your liberties. You're Americans and you'll stand up and take them back. But have you ever been in a position before where your commander-in-chief is alienating your allies, empowering your enemies, and gutting your military? What is the inevitable consequence of that combination, folks? Obama tells you peace is breaking out. That's why he's reducing your Navy to pre-World War I levels, your Army to pre-World War II levels, why he's cancelling weapons systems right, left and centre, while he's blowing off military contractors with hundreds of thousands of years of experience in their ranks. He wants to cut your nuclear arsenal down to 265 nukes and then down to 0. While the Russians alone have more than 16,000. But they would never use them against you, would they? Or threaten you with them? Because Hillary Clinton's made them your friend, right? People, this is about the survival of the West. One atomic weapon fired into your upper atmosphere from a ship off your coast would fry your entire electrical grid for years. EMP attack. We know the Iranians and North Koreans are experimenting with them. We know they can do it. One atomic bomb would fry your entire electrical grid. Your own government has said that if that ever happens, and there's virtually nothing to stop it, 90% of Americans would be dead within a year. That's your government telling you that, folks. And still, they can't pass a bill to protect the grid. That's as serious as it can get, folks. And I'll tell you what, if America goes down and gets in trouble, please don't come to New Zealand unless you want to learn Chinese, because they will have us in a heartbeat. If America falls, folks, the entire Western world falls. Right. There ain't nowhere to run, because if there was, I would be there. Seriously. See, you know, Obama, people say Obama's out of his depth. He doesn't understand foreign policy. He's, you know, look, if he was just stupid, would he not make a mistake in your favour once in a while? But everything he does is to weaken this country externally and internally. Everything he does is a dagger aimed at the heart of your constitution. This is a guy who was mentored by a pro-Soviet communist, Frank Marshall Davis. He got his first job in politics in Chicago at the hands of Alice Palmer, a pro-Soviet Marxist, travelling to the Soviet Union all the time, a member of 2 Soviet fronts that I know about. Both of those people were active in the peace movement. The peace movement has always been Soviet-controlled, always been controlled by the communists. Its aim has been to gut your military and to alienate you from your allies. What do you think Frank Marshall Davis and Alice Palmer would think of the job your president has done on your military, folks? Be pretty damn proud, I would think. So this is about survival, people. This is not about, you know, putting up with another 8 years of the Democrats. This is about your military being gutted and your enemies on the march. I'll tell you a little something. I want to call out a group here. Before World War II, there was one group in Germany that could have stopped the Nazis. They had the numbers and the moral authority to do it, but they didn't. I'm talking about the German churches. They could have stopped Hitler, but they thought, no, we'll stay out of politics. We will leave him alone, he'll leave us alone. We'll even put some swastikas in our churches to show good faith, which they did. And what happened, people? The world was plunged into war. Germany and Europe were devastated. 6 million Jews were slaughtered, and hundreds of thousands of your boys died sorting out the mess. Well, we have a situation now, folks. You have 90 million evangelical Christians in this country. 20 million of them, half of them registered to vote, and only half of those actually do. Around 20 million out of 90 million vote. Imagine if they voted, people. You would not have had Obama. Your military wouldn't have been gutted. Putin wouldn't have been empowered. ISIS wouldn't have been empowered. Iran wouldn't have been empowered. Christians are being slaughtered all over the Middle East and North Africa, folks. Had the Christians in America got involved in politics and actually voted, would that be happening today?
No.
So I say this, the blood of those Christians is on the hands of the Christians in America who didn't stand up and carry out their civic responsibilities. Am I being too harsh?
No.
Well, I think that's a message that we need to carry home. Can you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a message we need to slate home, because the next election we need to win, and we need the Christian vote to do it. We need it, people. We got vote fraud, we got all these things against it. Can any candidate win the next election on our side if they don't have the Christian vote behind them? So, see what's happened in your country. My books, and I hope you will read them, get them over there, because this is about knowing your enemy. The first book is about Obama and his communist ties. I was the guy who first exposed Frank Marshall Davis and Van Jones and all that sort of stuff. But the second book is probably the most important. That is Communists, Socialists and Progressives in the US Congress. And it calls out the more than 50 members of your House and 14 of your senators who are so enmeshed in Marxism, radical Islam, or both, they wouldn't pass a basic FBI security check to work in the post office. Yet they serve on your Armed Services Committee, your Homeland Security Committee, your Intelligence Committee, the whole lot, folks. I say there are at least 100 members of your House and 20 members of your Senate who wouldn't be able to clean the toilets at any military base in your country. Yet they are running this country now.
Right.
Same with your president. See what happened, folks? This all comes back to control of the labour unions. Now, you were very lucky in America for a long time, because America's unions were run by hardcore anti-communists like Lane Kirkland and George Meany. And they kept the Reds out of the unions. It was in the AFL-CIO constitution that no communist could hold office in that organisation. But in 1995, folks, everything changed. That was the year that Democratic Socialists of America, your largest Marxist group, very powerful in Chicago, that was the year they took over the AFL-CIO. They put their member, John Sweeney, in as president, and now their lapdog, Richard Trumka, runs it for them. They took over the unions, SEIU, AFSCME, NEA, United Auto Workers, you name it, they got them. And then they started to use that union muscle to purge the Democratic Party of people they didn't like. All the centrists, the moderates, the Southern Conservatives. Joe Lieberman, the senator from Connecticut, was the last one to go. Too pro-Israel for their liking. They purged all of the Democrats they didn't like. And now they run that party. 20,000 communists took over the unions, and the unions took over the Democrats. and they are writing their policies, folks. It's very simple. The communists set a policy. This is what we want for America. They make it union policy, and the unions make it Democrat policy. Obamacare, cap and trade, green jobs, card check, normalisation of relations with Cuba, socialisation of student loans, New START treaty with Russia, Iran deal. Every one of those started out as a communist policy, it became union policy, and the unions made it democratic policy. Now there's one I want to talk about that will destroy your country if it's allowed to continue, and that is comprehensive immigration reform, otherwise known as amnesty. Now you have Republicans, and I put that in inverted commas, that tell you that amnesty will be good for the GOP. Because if you give 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 million illegals citizenship and voting rights, they're all going to be so grateful they'll all become staunch conservatives, right? Just delusional. We know that the Latinos, who are the bulk of the illegals, are often staunchly socially conservative. Good Christian people, but they vote 80% Democrat. Have done for years and will do for years. Maybe they will change in 20 or 30 years. Maybe. But we have one election cycle left, folks, to save this country. They ain't going to change in substantial numbers in that time. So why do some of these Republicans tell you this is good stuff, folks? Could it be connected in any way to the fact that the US Chamber of Commerce has spent more than $1.7 billion promoting amnesty in the last 10 years? What do you think the Chamber wants out of it, guys? Cheap labour to run their factories and farms. Because the Chamber is all about profit. And I believe in profit, but I believe it should be fairly earned. And if you make a profit, you pay your costs. Is that a fair proposition? So the costs of amnesty are the destruction of your border integrity, the degradation of the rule of law in your land, the impoverishment of communities all over your country, and the massive endangerment of your national security. They are big costs, folks. Who is going to pay those? You are paying those people. The Chamber takes the profit, you pay the costs. Is that ethical business? Don't think so. But this really started out in the 1950s in Los Angeles with the Communist Party. The Communist Party leader named Bert Corona. He is the man who started up the Viva Kennedy clubs, the first organised effort to bring Latinos into the Democratic Party. And he also is the man who set up a whole network of groups in the southern border states and Southern California to encourage illegals across the border, to get them work in the factories and farms, get them citizenship and voting. Now, Corona trained a whole bunch of acolytes to carry on his work. 3 of them work closely together still, and they've transformed California and your country. The first one is Antonio Villagrosa, until recently the mayor of Los Angeles. A hardcore Marxist, he turned Los Angeles into a sanctuary city. He forbade the LAPD from enforcing immigration laws, and the illegals flooded in the hundreds of thousands. Second member of this group, a Communist Party supporter named Gil Cedillo, until recently the Democratic head of the California State Senate. He is behind the DREAM Act and also involved with the driver's license thing they're doing right now, that gave Latino illegals a whole bunch of, basically gave Latinos a whole bunch of rights they did not have before, including driver's licenses, which will be used to promote voting. Third member of this group, the most powerful woman in Southern California, in my opinion, Maria Elena Durazo, until recently the head of the California AFL-CIO. A big-time Marxist, She is behind the massive union-driven and union-paid-for Latino voter registration drives and get out the vote efforts that have added hundreds of thousands of new Latino voters to the California rolls in the last 15 years, almost all of them Democrats. The result of this deliberate Marxist program has been to turn California from a reddish, purplish state to solidly blue. Now all of the Electoral College votes from your most populous state go straight to the Democrats every presidential election, all on the back of deliberate illegal immigrant sign-ups. Deliberate Marxist program, folks. Now the leader of the movement today is a man called LaSalle Medina. You've seen him on TV wearing a purple shirt, leading an amnesty rally. The president consults him on immigration matters, president's great buddy. He is a member of Democratic Socialists of America. He's a Marxist. He supports the Communist Party USA, was until recently the leader of the SEIU union, and he served on Obama's Latino Advisory Committee. It was Medina that got the amnesty bill pushed through your Senate about 3 years ago. It was Medina who then worked with his union buddies to try and get your Republicans to get a bill through the House. And thankfully for you, the Tea Party stopped that. But Medina worked very closely with your rep, Luis Gutierrez, to carry that out. And Gutierrez is a former member of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party, a pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist outfit, which does not stop him from serving on your Intelligence Committee. They had the Senate and they had their man in the White House. And their agenda was written out, people, and they were going to take you down. But in 2009 and 2010, something miraculous happened. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. You. Where did you come from, people? I didn't see you coming. But the Tea Party stood up and it blogged and it marched and it rallied and it emailed and it agitated and it phone banked and it put some much needed spine into the GOP, and you people took back the House in 2010, folks. And the only person in America who doesn't understand that is Karl Rove. You did it. In 2008, Obama could walk on water. He was the second coming. 2 years later, thanks to you and Glenn Beck, he lost the House in a landslide. And that brought his agenda to a grinding, screeching halt. Think about it, folks. I'm saying this. You saved this country. Maybe you don't see it in those terms, but you think, had you not taken back the House in 2010, they would have Obamacare straight through, they would have got green jobs, cap and trade, card check, they would have had 8, 10, 12, 20 million illegals voting in 2012 and 2014, folks. Where would you be then? I say this, you might not see it because you're in the fight, but there are millions of people around this planet who understand without your efforts, we would be done now. And you don't get a lot of thanks, folks. You get a lot of the opposite. But I'm here to say thank you because you have saved your country. You are the most important political force in this country. I want to do something now that's normally considered very bad manners. But I'm a Kiwi, I can go home, right? Because you don't go to someone else's country and give them political advice, do you? You know, it's like telling your neighbour how to do their decor. But I get asked all the time. I've been to 43 of your 57 states now. Just checking you're awake. And they always say, what do we do now? Do we work with the Republicans? Do we form a third party? Do we just do local stuff? Are we wasting our time? Are we making a difference? Well, my only value to you is as an outside observer, because sometimes you can see your neighbour's situation more clearly than they can see their own. So this is how I see it, folks. You've got 100 years of progressivism to unravel. That might take you 10, 20, 40 years, I don't know. But one thing I do know is you got a huge battle in 2016 and you have to win. Because if you don't win, the Democrats are going to flood your country with illegals and foreign refugees, and they're going to swamp you forever, folks. They never intend to give up power again, ever. So you've got to win. And the only force that can win in the time we have left is the GOP. But the real question is this: what will the character of that GOP be? Because if they give you a candidate like Marco Rubio or Jeb, Common Core is wonderful, illegal immigration is an act of love, Bush, you might as well vote Democrat, people, because they're going to pass amnesty and there'll never be another Republican president. But if you have a candidate who is going to stand against amnesty, stand against refugee resettlement, and stand for your constitution, you have a fighting chance. And that's for you to decide, people. But I want to go back now, 1976. You have been losing your liberties, Republican, Democrat, for decades. And the people were pretty darn disgusted, but they had no option. But that year, they finally got a choice. That year, a man came out of California who spoke of a shining city on the hill and peace through strength and liberty and the Constitution. And hundreds of thousands of people, just like you, loved Ronald Reagan's message. And they got fired up. They piled into the GOP. They will get into the Republican Party. We'll get them that nomination. We'll take this country back. And what did the Republican old guard, the Karl Roves and the John Boehners of the day, what did they think of Ronald Reagan, folks?
Hated him.
They despised him. They hated him. Ronald Reagan was far too extreme to be elected. Ronald Reagan's a crazy right-winger. Ronald Reagan will destroy the GOP. Ronald Reagan was banned from Ohio that year by that state's GOP old guard, folks. They hated him. And they just beat him. They gave the nomination to Gerald Ford, and Ford went up against Jimmy Carter, and Carter won. How did those Carter years work out, guys?
Pretty good.
Barrel laughs, were they?
Iran's doing pretty good.
Yeah, well, yeah, he started that. Interest rates up to here, gas queues round the corner, gave away the Panama Canal, gutted your military, Iranian hostage crisis. Your second worst ever president, folks. Think of how bad it was in those last Carter years. People were seriously saying that America would never be great again. But you people, the grassroots, did not give up. They took over the GOP precinct committees, the township committees, the nominating bodies of the party. And when Reagan ran again in 1980, this time they were ready, and this time they refused to take no for an answer. They got Ronald Reagan that nomination against the protests of the old guard, and he went up against Walter Mondale, people, and he took him out 49 states to 1. Shame on Minnesota. 49 states to 1 by this crazy right-wing extreme candidate. People, the Iranian hostages were back on Inauguration Day. The interest rates went down, the taxes went down, the economy went down from 66 cents to 33 cents in the dollar. The economy boomed. He rebuilt your military, and he rebuilt the pride in this country. And he took out the Soviet Union without firing a single shot, folks. Any better president in the 20th century?
No way.
Anyone even close?
No.
So why did you have a Reagan revolution, folks? Because for once, it was you who got to decide the candidate.
Yes.
Could there be a message for today? Because right now, people, your country is Jimmy Carter on steroids. And you need Ronald Reagan on meth to turn this around, guys. You've got to go way beyond Reagan You've got to gut your federal government and restore your constitution. You know that. But how are you going to do it? Reagan was a genius. He could unite the social conservatives, the fiscal conservatives, the defence conservatives. He could stir up the evangelicals. He could bring the Reagan Democrats across. The grand coalition, the great communicator.